Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Something Bad Thursday. And today I thought it would be interesting to briefly dive back into film and sort of discuss films that have CGI characters. Now, what I mean by that they have CGI characters, I mean that the characters that are sort of supposed to be cartoons are CGI, and the rest is live action. So, taking CGI characters and inserting them into a live action film. I've noticed that a lot of them, at least the majority of them, are pretty bad. There's not, I think, a whole lot of good products out there that have um, mixed the two fairly well. For some odd reason, and I think there are some explanations as to why I think this is. Um, but in case you need a sort of an example of the films I'm talking about Garfield the movie, I'm talking about the Smurfs movies, the Chipmunk movies. Those ones are the ones that I think primarily focused on trying to insert uh, these fictional characters into a live action setting. And I think there were some other ones that were complete flops, but I think the ones that I mentioned are the ones that are most notable or the ones that were most heavily marketed. So, what is it about these films that I think is just god awful? um, they don't have a good story usually. They kind of don't really um, pay tribute to what initially these characters came from. Like, for example, Alvin and the Chipmunks, they make them like these, um, these, I mean, again, it makes sense to make them singers, but to the extent that they go to it is just unbelievably obnoxious and doesn't hold any amount of weight. Um, Also, with the Garfield film movie, I felt that it was really not paying any tribute or focusing on the kind of humor that Garfield was really all about. So it kind of flopped, I think, in that sense. And again, they all seem to lack in story, characters, and script and funny moments because usually these films are designed to be comedies, and to be honest, I don't think I was really laughing through a lot of the bits within these films. So, um, I'm going to kind of briefly go through, though, why I think they ultimately became so popular. Um, and as a result, lack in quality, and why I put them in this bad category. So, CGI is a very marketable thing for children nowadays. We see this now with all of the animated films. They are all done within CGI, and they are all designed to be computer generated because children like computers now, and children are very tech savvy now, a lot more so than they were back in my childhood. So there is a different market out there, and it makes sense that they would be interested in these kinds of approaches, I think, to these characters in particular. So, what is something that I think results in uh, it being bad by marketing it to children, having it being CGI? Well, the idea behind that is that you don't need to really try when it comes to story and characters. The character just markets itself. And I think that's primarily the focus that a lot of these films had, especially with having Garfield being the main center focus of the Garfield movie, and the Chipmunk movies having the Chipmunks be center stage and the Smurfs being center stage. Those sort of iconic, nostalgic um, characters are trying to be transcended for a new generation. And at least that's what I think the people that were behind these movies were trying to do. But I think they failed because, again, they didn't focus in on trying to create a good story or something that emulates what initially made these cartoons in particular, like Garfield and the Smurfs memorable. You know, it just fails in that respect. So that's why I think there is a huge amount of things that happen within these kinds of films where the writing and the script isn't there, and instead you just have, you know, fart jokes and all that stuff, you know, the kind of lowbrow humor thrown in. So it's not really a smart film, I guess you could say. But regardless of that, I think there's something else that makes these films in the category that I place them in, and that's um, that they try to keep the sort of innocence by marketing it to children nowadays. And again, it's trying to be very hip. Um, it's the same with, you know, the when you see the chipmunks, like when I saw them marketed firsthand, I was like, that's just horrible. Like, because they're literally playing into children's fads and not playing into trying to challenge them. And I think that's something that really made me angry. I was just like, ooh, you are just trying to get all of those kitties in the seats, and you're not trying to make a good product. And I think that's something that really deters these kinds of films from being any bit memorable. So I think that's something that really, I think, brings the films down onto a certain level that results in a certain level of bad, and it's just not entertaining, it's not engaging, it's just corporate schlock. And that's kind of the feelings that I've had with things like High School Musical, you know, and all these Disney Channel shows. They were all designed to be plastic, and they feel so artificial. The characters don't feel relatable. You know, it's like it's just so um, it just feels so fake. The whole setup that they try to put in with these films, and I think it really doesn't work to these films' advantage. And um, I think that's something that really I think deters audiences. And I think it also makes those who grew up with the characters in particular sort of disdain these films. And I didn't necessarily grow up with any of these characters really. I didn't really grow up with Garfield. All I knew though about Garfield was um, the the old newspaper comic strips. And I remember one of my uncles, he liked Garfield a lot, but I don't remember really. Again, and I only remember the Chipmunks from the one song that plays on Christmas time, and then I only remember the Smurfs for what they looked like and that they replaced things with Smurfs. So, again, there might not be a whole lot for them to maybe work with initially, but I think they definitely could have taken something that made the traditional characters memorable. Uh, the thing too is that the CGI within the films is just very it's it's hard to explain because on the one hand, yes, we're supposed to I mean we know that it's fake, but at the same time it just feels so it just feels like it's putting a um it just feels very artificial when you put something that's in CGI in a live action film. At least that's the the feeling or the visual feeling that I get when I watch it on a screen, is that it doesn't work in the same way as 2D animation with Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Like I felt that combination really worked to the film's advantage. And even though you know that the character isn't really there, you still felt like that there was this um, real effort into making the animation really stick out and try to be at the forefront of the film. Whereas this is just for the for the sake of putting in a CGI character into a live action film. And I don't think that works. You have to have another reason as to why these characters would be in the real world. You have to give at least a concrete explanation as to why they are the way they are within this context. So it really doesn't provide you a whole lot, at least from the films that I've seen where they do this, and I just think that it just doesn't have the same amount of depth as other films that have tried to do this method. In particular, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is actually the only film that I've seen that actually does the mixture really well of blending in live action with animation. And probably some of the earlier Disney cartoons where they insert a girl into animation, which is kind of the opposite that you have going there. But it's kind of the same in Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But here with all of these CGI characters being put into live action, they just don't have enough context. Hello. Oh. Okay. I'll be here. Sorry, apologize. That was just my mom. Yeah, I think though that's really all the explanations that I have when it comes to these films. They just scream corporate sellouts. I'm sorry, but they do. And they don't have a lot to them, and they just end up fading away. And they only ride up on the backs of other projects in the past that have used these characters. I think it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of some of the stuff that Hollywood does, and ooh, it just doesn't work for me here. I am sorry, but it just does not. But ultimately, I think that's really all I can say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.